Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Bowling, along with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Bob Beckel, Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. It's important to understand why the Jonathan Gruber tapes are so relevant to every single American. They give us a glimpse inside the Washington political sausage factory. Professor Gruber isn't a jerk. He's an accidental whistleblower. His videos tell the story of a president who's willing to do anything to get his way. But you wouldn't know that if you watch other media outlets. First up, NBC, where 11 days into the Gruber tapes and their evening broadcast haven't mentioned Gruber once. Here's what's more important to the news people over at NBC.
Every one of these brand new F-150s coming off the line for the first time tonight is made from aluminum, a much thicker grade than what is in a soda can.
Scaffolding failed high above the city streets on the tallest building in the city, the new World Trade Center tower. This may be an example of the most they've gotten done at the U.S. Capitol in years, perhaps because it's happening over the heads of Congress by about 100 feet. We got a rare look today at a spectacular restoration project underway.
No Gruber mentions. Second place lapdog goes to ABC, who just came around to Gruber last night. Here's what they found more newsworthy in the meantime.
An alert for parents. McDonald's is voluntarily recalling a toy found in its popular Happy Meals, a Hello Kitty birthday lollipop whistle. Tonight, begging for money and what the cameras captured afterward. Here, the oil baron, the ex-wife, and one of America's biggest divorce settlements of all time.
All right, NBC, zero mentions. ABC, just one. We'll bring it around. KG, toys, that toy thing, not Gruber.
Hello Kitty.
Hello Kitty.
Lollipop. Since I have a boy, they don't give him the girl toy, so I didn't have to worry about that. But that's interesting. It just goes to show you the priorities and the extent to which the media will go to dance around what's the biggest story of the day. That's the problem. But again, this is completely consistent with what we've seen from them, because their behavior, I mean, they act like sycophants to the president and to the administration.
What do you think about calling Gruber an accidental whistleblower?
Yeah, well, he was honest. But all these scandals have one thing in common. The mainstream media usually uses FNC as a reason to dismiss the relevance of a story. We call it Fox News avoidance syndrome. The irony, though, is if we don't cover it, then the story never gets covered. So in a way, the MSM is saying we don't want anybody to cover these stories at all. We'd feel better that way because when you cover it, we look like fools. But I want to point out in this show, on the A block, we're doing Obamacare, B, we're doing immigration, C, we're doing climate change. All of these three issues are predicated on one argument. It is for the greater good. No matter what you do, lie, cheat, whatever, it's for the greater good. This is fine if you're a political leader. If you are a leader, you're expected to believe it's for the greater good. But when the media believes it's for the greater good, that is criminal, because it is your job to question whether it is for the greater good, because you know it's never for the greater good. Your job is abdicated when you agree with them. You become scum.
Dana, so you're sitting around a newsroom, and you're a producer, and you go, well, this hashtag Gruber thing, this Gruber's everywhere. It's been trending for 11 days straight, but they choose to ignore it. I mean, I got to think it wasn't an accident.
Well, but it is groupthink, and it reminds me of how right after the midterm elections, when Republicans, the debate was it a wave? But the media as a whole came down to the conclusion that it was really America voting against both parties and America voting against Washington, rather than the story being one of built-up frustration with President Obama, the unpopularity of President Obama and his policies, plus the processes that they use to get things done. If I were in a newsroom, I wouldn't want to be dragged kicking and screaming to cover a story of corruption. But often I think that's what happens. But this story is getting around. It is going to have an impact because people who are paying attention, the voters who are calling up Congress, they're the ones who are watching us or on social media. They're well aware of this story.
Bob, $6 million to Gruber. I think every American has an interest in this, no?
No. I don't
story?
think so. No. Look.
Or conservative catnip, I think one of the idiots over there.
As soon as you're done asking me the question, I'll answer.
Well, you were playing...
solitaire, yeah. Solitaire. Let me put it this way. You saw the story there about all aluminum cars, which are lightweight and use much less energy. You always want to talk about energy independence. Toys that are dangerous to the American children Both those stories are far more important than Gruber.
Well, okay, let me. There are people here who may disagree. However,
obviously,
it's not a question of what's more important.
The producers, to begin with.
We didn't even say that NBC led with these or never led with Gruber. They never even aired a Gruber comment. They never even talked about Gruber on their nightly.
I mean, I don't see.
Really, Bob? Come on.
He doesn't think it's a problem.
Bob.
God, I don't get
can't
it.
even talk about it. We talk about stuff that isn't necessarily good for conservatives at times.
Usually in my block, it's the one with down there. I usually get the McDonald's stories. So, I mean, I'm leading the way around here.
Well, Hello Kitty is your come on line.
That's right.
Oh, my gosh.
But
honestly,
NBC's chief political person who's leading the chart, Chuck Todd, he said he's not. I don't know if you want to. Do you want to run it?
Yeah,
Sorry, I wasn't sure.
Let's roll that. Go ahead. Go, Chuck Todd.
I'm not saying it's not a story. Look, I'm not in charge of any of those network newscasts. But what is the news today of that? It's a political story. Network news in general hasn't been covering the political back and forth of Washington a lot lately. I don't think this has to do with Gruber specifically. I would just caution people.
What's aggravating, but this is your setup. But for me, what's aggravating? The guy's a former senior White House correspondent for NBC. The guy knows it's a big story, but for some reason is pretending.
Remember
it's not.
also how the story gets started. It wasn't because anybody at any of these news organizations found it. It was because of a citizen so frustrated with Obamacare. He's the one that found it and brought it to our attention. So it's actually even more disturbing, I think, to people that the media is. Why you look at the numbers of the Democrats, the numbers of the presidency, and the numbers of Congress and the media all go down at almost the same rate.
Can I take you back a couple of years, Chuck Todd? Would he have asked the question as a White House correspondent if Bush was the one who had hired
This is a
Gruber?
guy. He just wrote a book in which he explained President Obama saying that that people cling to their religion and guns because President Obama sees things as an anthropologist would. I mean, that's in Chuck's new book. So I don't think he would have asked.
Another line besides, what would they have done to Bush?
Because it's accurate. Here's the hilarious part. So Chuck Todd is saying, like, we haven't really been covering a lot of back and forth in Washington lately. So what have you been covering? Bog snorkeling, camel wrestling? That's your damn job. Just admit you're in the tank for him.
Dude,
that's why you're not covering it.
What's the title of his new show? Meet the Press. And that's what they do. The press asks the politicians the questions so the American people can find out what's really going on.
Stop manicuring the goatee.
How do we remove them from their job then? Because they are failing to perform it on a daily basis. I mean, that's really the point.
All right,
they all cover ISIS. That's a big story.
To be
the
fair,
aluminum car is a big story. This guy is not a big story.
To be fair,
except we're wasting our time on it. That's all right.
Listen, escuchen. He covered it on Meet the Press. Why is he covering for the other people at NBC who aren't covering the nightly news when every American has their TV on that isn't watching Fox? And by the way, you should be watching. Here's more proof you should be watching Fox. Why is he covering for them?
Well, I seen it was a question, wasn't it, in this show? Wasn't it top?
My question is, if Chuck Todd can cover it on Meet the Press, why does he say it's not that big of a story?
Well, I'm saying, didn't somebody ask him a question on Meet the Press about it?
No, he was being interviewed on another show. Okay. Bob, do you remember? Right. Do you remember though? Just to your point about comparing things to the previous administration, which is the only comparison that we have. Do you remember the story about Armstrong Williams and how that grew into one of the biggest stories about how he was doing radio interviews and paid commentary for the No Child Left Behind bill? Like basically run out of town. But believe me, the press office at the White House, that's the only thing they got asked about. Everybody in the press briefing room asked Scott McClellan about that. And so there is a difference that I think that the media bias thing is
a good example. I mean, Armstrong's a pretty smart guy, conservative. I mean, listen.
And what he did was not egregious. He wasn't lying.
There is a bias against conservative blacks in America, no question about that. But that was a far bigger story than this guy is.
Why? He wasn't lying. He wasn't asking. He wasn't lying to Congress to get legislation passed that would feather his own nest.
But Dana, you're assuming here. You guys are assuming automatically the President of the United States is lying. I don't assume that.
No, I'm saying that Gruber is lying. Gruber admitted that he lied.
But you thought everything he says is a lie.
No. Here's an interesting thing. This is potentially worse than. Okay, everybody's mad about the WMDs. Everybody thought that was true, including your people, including the Clintons. They thought the WMDs were real. They know that this is fake, and they still believed it.
I never one time. Not once you could go through this videotape did I ever call George Bush a liar. Ever.
Well, I can call Obama a liar. I have no problems.
In fact, that isn't even really the point. I mean, Nancy Pelosi clearly lied because we caught her on tape and on our website. As far as President Obama, he basically said
he doesn't even know the guy.
Well, he knew, but he was an advisor. Yeah. He kind of remembers him a little bit. And then there are meetings upon 20 meetings in the White House. People saying they put Gruber with him all over the place. Even people left and right saying that Gruber was instrumental in talking President Obama into delivering the message this way. That's the problem. Call him a liar, don't call him a liar.
They call him inconsequential consultant.
With the truth lightly. Go ahead, KG.
Yeah, I'm saying he tried to deflect it and just dismiss it to say, oh, he's inconsequential consultant. But we see the truth of the matter is not that. I mean, like Dana said, is this a guy who's just completely incompetent and ignorant and just doesn't remember someone that was in the Oval Office a dozen times and is in fact the architect of Obamacare?
Who said that?
Who said what?
Who said he was the architect?
I think everybody in the administration did.
Everybody knows that he is.
And by the way,
he is the architect.
We're 11 days into this, and now you're hearing this for the first time.
Let me give you this. This is a big story among very conservative Republicans.
And the other side of the country shouldn't even know this part, right?
Go out to Middle America and ask them this morning.
Liberal Democrats don't deserve to know this.
No, the other alternative is he's lying. Either one is bad.
Let's do this. Guess who else finally found Gruber newsworthy? Our pal Jon Stewart. Hey, Johnny boy, 2 weeks late to the party. I hope we brought something good.
The Democratic leadership told us that the individual mandate in the Affordable Care Act was not a tax, even though they knew it was a tax. That's pretty slimy. I guess all they can do now is go before the American people and say, all right, we misled you. But it was for the greater good.
We have the news here in the past few days about some of the comments made by Mr. Gruber.
I don't know who he is.
Can you ever not disappoint us?
Wow.
Hey, Johnny boy, you should check the Supreme Court. They're the ones who said it was a tax, and that's the reason they made Obamacare the law of the land. Okay? Watch that once in a while. Get off of Howdy Doody. You'll be better off.
You know, the point was that Gruber actually figured out a way to call it something that could get past the Supreme Court.
The other aspect of this is the New York Times is defending it as well.
Shocking.
They're providing more cover for Obama than a burqa. They say that even though Gruber says he tricked the public, he didn't really trick the public. Can an entire newspaper have fallen on its head? They will do anything. They're his publicist, his defender, and his lawyer. So what do you do? What do you do when you find out a contest is corrupted? What is the next thing? You got to have a do-over. This requires a debate and a vote that's fair and square. If you're against a revote on Obamacare, you know you're going to lose.
Is that because we should be for a revote because a bunch of stupid idiots didn't follow what they think was going on?
No, because they lied about it.
Dude,
what? Stupid idiots.
How many people shine the right light?
About the stupid idiots that voted for it or Democrats?
Well, good then. They don't want to revote.
The only Democrats voted for this.
We don't want to revote.
So fine, the stupid idiots he's talking about are your fellow. Can I just read the New York Times editorial that Greg just referred to right there? Quote, his comments should not be taken as evidence that the reform law was hatched in secrecy and foisted on the public by trickery. KG, I'm not sure if not by trickery, then how?
I mean, listen, let me tell you something. Bob wants this to, it doesn't matter. Let's do the Hello Kitty story, right? But let me tell you something. It is going to matter, and this is going to matter through 2016 because people do care about this. Nobody likes this deliberate ruse over the American people and the total flagrant disrespect, and then people like elected leaders like Pelosi and the rest of them trying to say it isn't true, and we've got the tape, we've got the editorial to show that, in fact, it is.
Do you remember the Tea Party, the town hall meetings were all about Obamacare? Every network, everybody covered them. People
and they were mocked.
And no,
they were right.
They were not
yes, they were.
They were
right. The point of that coverage.
They were called racist. They were called bigots.
I'm not talking about people in town meetings. That was a big story.
Right. No, but the point of the coverage was to make fun of the people who showed up at the meeting.
I don't believe that's the case.
Yes, absolutely.
That was the coverage.
About the New York Times, actually.
You quoted the New York Times the other day, by the way.
Playing ball. I did about Al Sharpton.
Yeah.
We'll get to
that.
If
I could just say, I think that the reason this, your revote idea is interesting. I think that is even more interesting coming up to January when the employer mandate, which President Obama has now delayed twice, it actually goes into place in January. Businesses have been starting to meet with their accountants recently. In the last couple of weeks, you start hearing more and more about people saying, how is this supposed to work? This isn't going to work. And I think that is why you'll see even more pressure in the next Congress to have some sort of a vote, and maybe a revote would be called for.
It certainly would be fun.
You know why, Dana? Because it's a fraud. It's a fraud that was perpetuated against the American
their
people.
accountants about it?
Well,
not good business.
We just found out how they passed it.
Because Obama pushed it off.
But it still was going to happen, right? It was still going to happen.
All right.
So wouldn't you think you'd want to look at it?
Quick thought before we go?
I think I'll just...
Perfect. Directly ahead. The president sets the stage for his big announcement on immigration. What can we expect to hear from President Obama tomorrow night? Details when we return.